Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome again to another exciting edition of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification Course. Say that 10 times as fast as you can. If you're joining us here at the Peaceful Solution headquarters in Abilene or abroad, please be seated. Thank you for the welcome. And if you're joining us online, if you're on the Facebook page, at the top of the page, you can there's our books are there that we're covering. This is the fifth book, the fifth book in the intermediate series called Responsibility. Go ahead and you can download that and join us, the teacher's manual there, and follow along with us. And feel free to download the manual and use it. Teach it. Just make sure you follow the recipe, follow the procedures, the lesson plans. That's what we go over in these certification classes, is the proper way to teach the program. And of course, the proper way to do anything is to follow instructions. That's what we're learning about being responsible, following instructions, and the importance of following instructions in order to become a responsible person. So teaching the Peaceful Solution will definitely give you a great exercise in following instructions. Okay, so we did leave off, and we're in chapter 2. We're in chapter 2, developing a responsible character. We had left off on page 20. We just finished 26, and we were going to go into 27. And but before we do anything, let's go back to the lesson plan. Let's see, we're going to be on LP 2D, and we're still going to be covering step number 5. If you recall, 25, 26, and 27 are not listed on the next step, on the following step, so that means that you have to cover them in step 3. So we're going to go ahead and read step 3 again, just to reacquaint ourselves with what we were doing and the purpose of objective procedure of this lesson. And it says, explain to students that many people are responsible in some areas, but their goal should be to become consistently responsible in all areas of their lives. Tell students that the deciding factor between a responsible and an irresponsible person is self-control. The ability to stop, think, weigh out your decision or your options, and then proceed with the right choice, which doesn't bring harm to yourself or others in the environment. That's the right choice when you make the moral decision. It says, refer students to the section ESSEP for Self-Control on page 23 and 24. Tell students that when they practice self-control, they can stop and think about the consequences of their actions so they can make responsible choices. And then assign the critical thinking exercise on page 24 as homework. And if you recall, David did that in his class. So let's go ahead and go over to page 26. We're gonna do just a little bit of a review. If you could put up the first visual so I can remind what we went over in the last class. Remember, we talked about the subconscious mind, the conscious and subconscious mind, and that word subconscious meaning it's something that's underneath your conscious mind. And if you notice, your subconscious mind is a whole lot larger than your conscious mind. Okay, in other words, that subconscious mind that we don't have the ability to control at this time. In other words, we don't have the ability to. If we did, we'd see that we could do some pretty awesome things. I showed you some of the people we talked about some of the folks that had little glimpses of what that subconscious mind could actually do. We talked about the Rain Man, Kim Peek, and others, but that's just a small sample of what, the subconscious mind holds. It's just an infinite amount of data or that could be put there, that could be stored there. And everything that we've seen, heard, sensed, everything since we were in our mother's womb is in our subconscious mind at this time. And recall, we talked about being careful. You can go to the next a visual. Being careful, what we're interfacing with, because whatever we're interfacing with, or we're putting our face in front of, or attaching ourselves to, listening to, watching, playing, etc. That's what's going into our conscious and subconscious mind. And remember, we talked about the subconscious mind does not have the ability to distinguish between what's real and what's not real. And remember, we use the example of not, watching all these scary movies where, all of a sudden now, consciously, that it was only a movie, but laying in bed at night, you start getting scared whenever you hear noises or something. You're thinking that, what is that? Because you fed your subconscious mind something that it doesn't realize is not real. And so it's feeding it back to your conscious mind. Okay. So you got to be careful what you download. We have to be careful what we're downloading into our subconscious mind and even our conscious mind. Remember, that's part of responsibility. We have to be responsible and accountable for what we allow ourselves to be influenced by. Remember all those influences we learned about? Food, pets, people, magazines, books, movies, etc. Music. Those are big influences. Okay, so we talked about also what programming is, like television programs. You're downloading these things into your mind, into your conscious and subconscious mind, and they become a permanent part. So we have to be very careful what we're allowing in, because once we allow it in, we can't erase it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's staying there. Okay, so we got to be very careful and be very responsible about what we watch, what we listen to, what games we decide we want to play, or anything else like that. We need to be very careful in choosing. And if it's something that goes against the peaceful solution in any way, shape, or form, we should say no. We should reject it. We should push it aside and replace it with something positive. Remember, I think that one slide said something about not putting any negativity into your mind. They even realized that it's not healthy to put negativity into our mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the next visual. I think I have another. Okay, no, that's where I'm going to be picking up. So let's go ahead and look at the next page instead of the visual. Let's look at the next page. Page 27 is where we stopped. It says, when we stop, well, let me read the bottom of page 26 again, because it shows the young man making a decision here. It says, here's a perfect example. Your classmate constantly picks on you. Even though you've asked him to stop, he persists. Finally, you become so frustrated and annoyed, you consider hitting him. That desire to hit him comes from your subconscious mind, because you, like most people, have internalized that violence is a way to solve problems. Although it's not appropriate, subconsciously you see violence as a legitimate option for stopping him from picking on you. And why do you think that your subconscious thinks that's a legitimate option? Because it cannot tell between real and unreal violence that it sees. So when you're downloading violence from TV into your subconscious, it's going to kick that up as an alternative for you. It's going to give you that as an alternative into your conscious mind when you're in a situation. So you shouldn't be downloading any kind of violence into your mind where you have that option in front of you. Okay, so now on page 27, it says, when we stop and think about the best way to handle a situation, even when we're angry, we're practicing self-control. It takes careful consideration of what is morally right to avoid violence and aggression when we're angry. Controlling anger is an important part of developing the trait of responsibility, because even when we're angry, we must be accountable for our actions. And it says, why don't I, well, we won't show that yet. Let me go ahead and continue here. Did you know that anger is normal? Did you know that? Of course you did. If you've been following us, for all these months, these years that we've been going over this course, If you recall in the self-control unit, let's go look at the next slide. Not sure if it's the next one. Yeah, that it's anger is a normal emotion. We learned that in the self-control unit on chapter 3, on page 57 in the introduction to chapter 3. If you recall, it said right there, anger is a normal emotion that we all experience from time to time, whether we're adults, children, we all experience it. Okay, so it's a normal emotion. It's a negative emotion, but it's a normal emotion. And what determines whether we handle it appropriately or not is if we control that emotion. Remember, it's uncontrolled negative emotions that are the problem. It's not the emotion itself. It's the uncontrolled negative emotions. So it says, that's right, it's an emotion like joy and sadness. Just as people feel joy or sadness for different reasons, so too do people become angry for different reasons. Can you go to the next visual after that? I think that was the next one after the one you were showing. No, go to the next. Let's go to the next one. Okay, there you go. We'll come back to those other 2 points that I just skipped because it shows us some appropriate ways to deal with anger, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. So, following along in the book, it says, do you know that anger is normal? That's right. It's an emotion like joy and sadness. And just as people feel joy or sadness for different reasons, so too people become angry for different reasons. Do you know someone who has a short fuse? Does he or she get angry quickly at almost anything? What about someone who hardly ever gets angry, but when they do, they become quiet and won't say a word to anyone? If you recall, when we were covering chapter 3 of the self-control unit, that's called withdrawing. Remember, people had different anger styles. You know, one anger style was to withdraw, giving somebody the cold shoulder. The other one was displacement of their anger, where they would kick the cat or kick the trash can, or somebody that's not really involved in the situation, they would take it out on someone else. And then there was the attack, the attack where somebody, verbally or physically attacks someone. And I want to say when they become angry, but remember, anger, if you attack somebody, you're not actually angry, right? No, you're a step above that. You're now gone into a rage because you're out of control. Now you're out of control. You're not controlling that emotion of anger, so now you're out of control. And that's rage. That's not anger, although anger is a factor. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so it says, knowing how to control your anger so that you don't hurt yourself or others or damage property is another way you can be responsible. Although anger is normal, rage is not. Rage is uncontrolled anger, and rage can be damaging and even destructive. Let's go ahead and play that clip. There's a clip I want to show you of someone that didn't control themselves, that didn't practice self-control, and actually used rage as a way to solve their problem. Let's go ahead and play the clip. That's the wrong one. Should be the bullying scenario, please. We'll show the young man first, and then we'll show the adult that don't control himself. And it's the visual.
Menos Alexander.
Drink, drive, and leave.
I like him.
Hey, what's up, little chavala? What are you waiting? Let us to your girlfriend or what? Hey, pork chop. Hey, listen to me, I say I'll slice you up and eat you like sushi, eh? Go on, man. Hey, look at me when I'm talking to you. Hey, pork chop. Hey, little chicken. Hey, you listening to me or what? Hey, little pork chop. Pork chop. Hey, little vato, where you think you're going, huh? Hey, give me that money. What's up? Wait, hey, you leaving me or what? Hey, get out of here. Get out of here, vato. Right now.
Hi, Manuel. How was your day?
Manuel, are you okay?
Hey, listen to me. Now you look at me. Hey.
Mommy, why did Manu have to die?
Well, honey, it's because he didn't practice a peaceful solution.
So as you can see, that's definitely not the way to handle your emotion of anger, right? By allowing it to turn into something like what you saw with Manuel. Now, what's really ironic about that clip, that was a clip that we've shown for years here, that was made by some Peaceful Solutions students. But then I ran across another video today, and I didn't even think about the names of the individuals involved here until after I saw the clips. And then I thought, that's ironic. Their names, both of their names, and I'm going to see if you can catch it in the next video. So we saw a young man that didn't handle school bullying appropriately. Now I want to show you an adult. You remember we learned in chapter 3 of the self-control unit about, normally adults, they don't throw tantrums. Babies throw tantrums, right? Because they haven't yet learned self-control. Well, sometimes adults throw tantrums too. And we're going to watch here a clip of an adult man. It's about 3 minutes and 22 seconds long. And I'm going to have to do there's no voiceover, so I'm going to have to do the voiceover myself. I think if you can leave the mic on so I can kind of tell people what's taking place that are listening over the radio or whatever a form of media where they can't actually see. But look, go ahead and play the clip. Okay, so we see a major league baseball game here. Might be minor league even. I think it's a minor league game. There's a coach getting in the face of the umpire here. I mean, his face is right up on his face. He's yelling and screaming. I'm hoping they both have mouthwash because they're really close. This baseball coach now is going out onto after yelling and screaming, is going out onto the home plate, and he's burying it with dirt. He's having a fit. He's throwing a tantrum, and he's burying the home plate in dirt. And, he's marking home plate out, and then he's, making his point with the umpire. You can't see that? You don't know where home plate is? Now he's walking out. He's still in a rage. And he's walking over to third base. And this is the first time I've seen somebody steal third before they got to first. But he's arguing now with the third base coach. He's in his face, pointing, screaming, probably spitting, mocking him, teasing him, yelling at him. Now he walks over to the third base. He kicks it up, loosens it up, and pulls third base out of the ground. Now he's walking into center field, short center there, towards second base with the third base plate in his hand, and he throws the third base out into the field. Now he continues. He lays down on the grass. He looks like he's imitating an army soldier, and there's some kind of white bag I think the pitcher has on the mound there, and he throws it toward the umpire. Now, if that had been a bomb, it would explode right in front of the umpire there standing at home base, and he's yelling obscenities at him. Of course, we had to take that out. We can't be hearing those. He's yelling obscenities. He's still very upset. And now he's walking, let's see, what appears to be over to, that must be second base. He kicks the second base up, and he removes second base off the field, and he, again, walks off with second and third base. He picks them both up, and he walks off with them onto the field. Now, mind you, this is in the middle of a game, and this is a grown man. His name is Coach Wellman. Coach Wellman. Coach Wellman. Now he throws the bases on the ground and he walks off the field because apparently he's been ejected from the game. Now, if you could hear the crowd, they're all going wild right now. They're all cheering him on, as if he's doing something that's acceptable, Remember, many children, adults are watching this thinking this is normal behavior for an adult, right? Cheering it on. And then so he walks off the field. Okay, well, that's the first time I've done a play-by-play. I hope I did well enough for everybody to understand. But Mr. Wellman, Coach Wellman, and Manuel, neither one of them are well. Neither one of them are well. The Manuel or Wellman, neither one of them are well. Okay, because neither one of them have been taught the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, or they would not have resorted to that sort of behavior, not using self-control in that situation. Okay, so that's definitely the wrong way to handle our emotions. Remember, anger is normal. It's normal that somebody would get upset about being bullied, or it's normal that somebody would get upset about a bad call in a baseball game. But it's how we handle it that determines whether or not we handle it morally and responsibly, or whether we handled it the wrong way, and it could end up in something even as bad as a murder. Okay, as we saw with Manuel, the young man. So rage, back to the reading on page 27 in the middle, rage is uncontrolled anger. Rage can be damaging, even destructive. Someone who hits, pushes, or yells at others has lost control of their anger and is in fact enraged. If you cannot control your anger, you are likely to hurt others or yourself. If you could go to the next visual, I want to read a little something to you. This is from dictionary.com about anger. It says that one of the roots, the etymology of the word anger, it says one of the roots of the word anger is the Greek word ankon, and it means strangling, like a strangling. It's where the word strangling comes from. And it says, which is perfect description of the way anger actually feels. Indeed, anger can make you feel like strangling someone. Well, anger cannot make you feel like strangling someone. Okay? So let me clarify what they're saying here. Anger, as we see on the facts about anger here on page 58 of the self-control unit, anger that is uncontrolled can turn to rage. That's a step above, okay? That's where, the strangling would come in, okay? You would have to be enraged to strangle somebody. I mean, I've been angry at situations, and I didn't want to strangle somebody, okay? Now, if I didn't control that anger, and I let it keep replaying in my mind, and I didn't stop, think. First of all, remember in the stop acronym, why do we stop? Why do we even stop? Why does it say S is for stop? Because we have to allow our emotion to, whatever emotion it is, to clear, to calm down. We need to let it pass before we can think clearly about what our options are and then proceed with the right option that won't bring harm to yourself or somebody else. Let's go back to the visual. So it says anger that is uncontrolled can turn to rage. And anger is a normal emotion, but the way we choose to respond might be anything but normal or healthy. When anger is expressed in healthy ways, people are able to resolve their differences in a peaceful manner. So notice, anger doesn't have to lead to something bad. It can actually lead to a peaceful resolution of a problem if it's handled properly, okay? I really want you to get that in your mind. It's not wrong to become angry about something. We all get angry from time to time. What the problem is not handling that appropriately. That's why it's called anger management. Okay? It's called anger management. It's managing your anger. It's managing it properly. It's like you would maintain. Managing is like maintaining, okay? If you ever manage property, I used to manage some properties up in Alaska. Managing means you take care of it. You keep it in great working order, just like maintaining something, maintenance, okay? It's handling it appropriately and not letting it get out of control. Let's go ahead and go back to the visual. Okay, so it says now rage is dangerous excessive anger. People who are enraged lose their ability to think clearly. Remember, that's why you had the stop, the S in the stop acronym is for stop, so you can stop and think and let your mind clear up. But if you don't do that, you can go into a rage, and that's dangerous because they can't think clearly when they're in a rage. It's like being drunk. You're under the influence of that anger. You're under the influence of your mind is clouded and you're not thinking properly. You're not able to. It's like being drunk. They become driven to lash out verbally and or physically. Rage has led people to inflict serious physical injuries on others and even commit murder, as we saw in the video. Now, when you saw that coach take that little bag off that little white bag off the pitcher's mound that the pitcher uses, I guess, for his hands, and he lobbed it like a grenade. What if he had the use of his subconscious mind and he could have turned that into a bomb? Because he lobbed it just like a soldier. Apparently he'd been in the military because he lobbed it perfectly right in front of that man's feet. If that had been a real bomb, he would have murdered that man. He would have murdered that umpire. Okay? Now we look at something like that and we think, well, it was just a bag, it's harmless, it didn't hurt. That's how wars starts. That's how wars start. We have thousands upon thousands of murders taking place right now, even as we're sitting here. We have wars raging all over the place. People are being murdered. Bombs are being dropped on people right now. Do you think people that are doing that are controlling their emotion? No, some of them are probably sitting in a room somewhere with a joystick, 1,000 miles away from the theater of war, and they're actually dropping bombs in some room somewhere, and they probably just like playing a video game. They're not even, a lot of these bombs, these smart bombs and things, they call them smart bombs. I think they're pretty dumb. I think they're very dumb for dropping them on people and murdering people, because that's what you're doing. You're murdering people with these bombs. You're destroying property. I look at what's going on in Gaza right now. It's horrible. These people they're just being bombed indiscriminately. They're pretending like, these are military targets, but I don't know. I see a lot of dead children. I see a lot of homes being destroyed. They don't look like military targets. But I see, but I guess it was kind of nice of them, if they gave them 4 days to get ready for the next round of bombs they dropped, right? They gave them 4 days of no bombs so they could get some aid, some food and water and some medicine so they can continue bombing them 4 days later. I mean, does that make any sense to anybody here? Of course it doesn't, because war is confusion. Look up the word war. The etymology of the word war, it means confusion. People are confused. Okay? People that are confused have their minds, their fingers on buttons. Okay? And they're pushing these buttons and pulling these triggers, and they're not thinking a thing about what they're doing. They're not actually realizing the end result of all of this. Okay? But this is rage. It's uncontrolled. It's uncontrolled anger. It's a rage. It's not controlled. None of this is controlled. So that shows you the world is not practicing the peaceful solution at all. Okay, now it says, remember what it said on page 27 in the last paragraph. Someone who hits, pushes, drops bombs, shoots guns, threatens somebody by parking a ship off the coast of their country and threatening them that if they don't submit, they're going to start firing bombs at them or whatever. That's rage. That's not practicing self-control in any way, shape, or form. If you cannot control your anger, you're likely to hurt others or yourself. It says being angry should never be an excuse to become verbally or physically aggressive, refuse to complete a task, or not do what you're told. Controlling your anger before it turns to rage or affects the way you treat others or the way you fulfill your obligations begins by controlling your thoughts. So you've got to control your thoughts. Now, because your thoughts, remember, lead to your feelings. Feelings like anger. And then your feelings lead to behavior, right? Okay, so, and then your behavior leads to either positive or negative consequences depending on what choice you make. Let's look at the next slide. I was going to show you something else about rage. I want you to understand about this emotion called rage. This is from Wikipedia. The etymology of the word rage, notice the underlined in red part. It comes from the word rabies. You ever heard of a dog that has rabies? Or, an animal that's rabid or has rabies? They're foaming at the mouth. They're ready to bite you. And if they bite you, they can inflict serious harm because they're infected with a serious disease. Well, people become rabid as well. As you can see, the word rage means it comes from the word rabies. People are rabid too. People become rabid when they lash out, when they attack somebody else, or like a rabid wolf or a rabid dog or a rabid rat or whatever, a rabid cat or a rabid skunk. Remember, they can't think straight. These animals, when they're rabid, their mind is confused. It's not working properly because they're diseased. They're sick. So they just attack anybody. And this is what we see going on in the world today. People are in a rage. And they're not thinking straight, okay? They're foaming at the mouth to kill their enemies, coming up with new, more exciting weapons, they think. I guess that's excitement, right? Watching smart bombs and seeing how far these shells can travel. Some of them can travel upwards of, I think they had one that they could shoot from the coast of Cuba, and within 10 seconds it could hit the shores of Florida. Wow. Imagine what they could do with their brain if they used it for the peaceful solution and bringing peace to the world. Imagine what they could do to help their fellow man if they would take that knowledge and turn it around to build instead of destroy. Imagine what they could do. Imagine what we could do. Okay. So remember, we got to control our thoughts. So let's go over to page 28. Let's go ahead and put up the visual because I have it for people that are watching. It has a scenario here where it says, read the following scenario and look at the pictures. Notice how thoughts can result in actions. Now, you see a picture of, you know what? You know what? Ha, you didn't catch me. I caught myself. We got to go back to LP2D. Before we go to page 28. Yes. We have to be responsible and follow the lesson plan, right? I was waiting for somebody to tell on me, but I didn't hear anybody. So, Okay, so LP2D step 4. We're in step 4 now because now we're going into page 28. So it says, explain that to become responsible in all areas, we must become aware of our thoughts and how they affect our choices and actions. Explain that because we sometimes make irresponsible choices when we are angry, we should be especially careful of angry, hostile, or violent thoughts. And it says, have students complete the exercise on page 28 and discuss why scenario 2 exemplifies how practicing self-control can help us control our thoughts. Emphasize that anger without self-control can result in irresponsible and dangerous choices. Have students turn to page 32 in their handbooks and read the section, I can make self-control part of my character. Explain that they can identify negative thoughts by determining if their thoughts are violent or angry. Thoughts can also be negative if they lack compassion or humility. Stress that negative thoughts can be directed toward themselves or others. So now we can turn over to page 28. And with that in mind, we can turn to page 28 and continue in this scenario. Because it says, read the following scenario and look at the pictures. Notice how thoughts can result in actions. So here we have on the picture on the left, it says, here's the scenario. The hallway is crowded. John stepped on Rick's new shoes and did not apologize. Now, Rick could choose to think the following. He could choose to think, as we see here, that stupid son of a you-know-what stepped on my shoes. I know he did it on purpose. He's always on my nerves. How would he like it if I stepped on his toes? Now, you can see he's got the Spock eyebrow thing going there. Both eyebrows are like way up in almost to his hairline there, man. I know somebody else that gets that way when I say something, sometimes that eyebrow goes, I don't know how they do it, but it goes way up here. It's like, whoa, man. But I can tell they don't like what I just said, or what I just did. I just know it. I can see that eyebrow, man. And that guy there's got that eyebrow going, man. I don't know how they do that. But anyway, so it says both of these thoughts led to Rick's anger. What actions do you think can result from these thoughts Rick's having? Now, remember, he's thinking that stupid son of a you-know-what stepped on my toes. And I know he did it on purpose. And he's always on my nerves, man. And he's having these hot thoughts. So, he might start yelling at John. He might push John in the hallway, it says. He might continue to dwell on those negative thoughts and seek revenge or retaliation. He might do what Manuel did. Because those might have been Reeboks, Those might have been some Air Jordans, man. Those might have been some really important shoes, And, man, you step on those $200 shoes of mine, you're going to pay for it. I mean, some people are like that, man. I've given people what they call flat tires when I'm walking along. I step on the back of their shoe and, their shoe comes off or whatever. And they turn around and look at me like, what'd you just do, man? It was totally accidental, I mean, I didn't mean to do it. But people get pretty upset about shoes. I'm not saying recently I've seen anything like that, but when I was growing up, when I was younger, people get very upset about that, and if they don't stop, in that situation and realize, hey, that was probably just an accident, not something that was done purposely. Okay, so he might retaliate and seek revenge, which wouldn't end up great for Rick. Now, let's look at the second scenario. It says, instead of choosing to think in a way that will fuel his anger and possibly lead to rage, Rick could think, it's so crowded, he probably didn't realize he stepped on my shoes. Okay, so you see the contrast between the thoughts. One he's having the negative thoughts, which are going to lead to negative feelings, which are going to lead to negative actions, which are going to lead to negative consequences. The second scenario, he's thinking a positive thought. He's giving the guy the benefit of the doubt. He's trying to be a peacemaker here. He's trying to use the peaceful solution. He's like, yeah, it's crowded. He probably didn't even realize he did it. Okay? That kind of a thought is not going to want to seek revenge. It's not going to be angry. It's not going to get angry. even though he might be annoyed. Remember, the primary emotion might have been he was annoyed or frustrated because somebody stepped on his shoe. It doesn't have to lead to anger, right? He could just say, it was probably just an accident and go on his way. John would likely dismiss the incident and go on his way without giving it another thought. That would be what would result from thinking this kind of a thought. There wouldn't be any kind of harm done. It says, it is up to you to become aware of your thoughts so that you can control anger before it turns to rage. What we think about life's frustrations and how we choose to handle them can make the difference between developing a responsible or an irresponsible character. Remember, it's all about attitude. It's all about how we think about others and situations that come our way. Okay, so I wanted to go back to those slides that I skipped because I want to show you a couple. Well, no, let's not go back to that yet because I can actually use those on page 29 here. Because I want to show you some appropriate ways we can deal with anger and remind you what we learned in chapter 3 of the self-control unit. But on page 29, it does give some simple ways to control anger. If you can put up the next visual. Okay, and okay, so it says, here are some simple ways to control anger. Number 1, know your anger triggers. You remember what a trigger is? A trigger is something that begins a process, okay? And some people's triggers are, it says, take the time to understand what triggers your anger. Do you get angry if you feel you're being treated unfairly? Does people taking your belongings without your permission? It says make you angry, but actually, does anybody make you angry? No, we choose to become angry, okay? It's by the way we perceive the situation. We choose to become angry. It says, does people taking your belongings without your permission make you angry? Do you find yourself arguing with people easily? So you got to know what triggers your anger. You got to know what pushes your buttons. You got to be aware of it, okay? And that's why what we did on the self-control in the 3rd chapter of the self-control unit, we talked about the anger sequence, how, and I'm going to read part of this is on page 64 of the self-control unit. It says, whether we realize it or not, there's a series of steps that lead to feeling angry. It's not like it's instant, okay? These steps involve our triggers, thoughts, and feelings. Now, it says that it says anger starts with an incident that pushes our buttons and triggers our anger. Conflicts, disagreements, insecurities, and disappointments are examples of common triggers. What are your anger triggers? Well, everybody has certain things that they don't like. There's certain things people do or might say that don't set right with them, that don't set well with them. But knowing what those triggers are, knowing what our triggers are, is the first step in learning how to control our anger, because once we realize this is an area where I might start to get angry, knowing that, you can be aware of it, and when it comes up, you can be ready for it, okay? So you have, in the anger sequence, you have triggers, and then whatever somebody does to push your buttons leads to hot thoughts. And remember, the hot thoughts are thoughts like, you saw Rick having, at first when he said, how would he like it if I did it to him? And, I know he did it on purpose. And he's having all these fueling his mind with fire, He's creating, he's making the fire. He's throwing gas on his thoughts. He's throwing gasoline on those thoughts, and it's becoming bigger and it's hotter and hotter, like we learned in the respect unit, chapter 5, about responding to disrespect. Remember, you can't fight fire with fire. You've got to figure out a way to get rid of those negative thoughts and replace them with the positive thoughts and cool those thoughts down. So hot thoughts, like, how would she like it if I did that to her? Or he makes me so mad I could smack him. Those are hot thoughts because they fuel your anger and make you feel you have the right to be angry and to act on your anger. Like the Israelis have the right to be angry, and they have the right to be killing and murdering. And I say Israelis, but the Israelis, you know, the population at large isn't the ones pushing these buttons. You know, this is their leaders telling the military to attack somebody that attacked them. And surely, you know, when somebody attacks you and then you retaliate, that'll bring peace in the end, right? You see why they would need what you see why they desperately need to be taught the peaceful solution. If they'd realized that, they wouldn't keep, you know, who was it that said doing the same thing over and over? You know, who was that? It wasn't Einstein. Everybody blames him for everything. But somebody said, you know, trying to do the same thing over and over is insanity, you know, expecting a different result, keep doing the same thing. They've been retaliating and getting revenge for thousands of years. And peace is breaking out everywhere, isn't it? Yeah, I guess, yeah. If you call dropping 1,000-pound bombs on neighborhoods with messages, Merry Christmas, written on it, right? I guess as a Christmas present, you know, before you drop it on them, I guess that's going to bring peace. Okay, if that's what you think, world, continue on. But you know what? It's not going to end up great. So it would be great if the world leaders, we could start with them, you know, if they would just take a minute and tune in and listen to the peaceful solution and realize two wrongs don't make a right. Two wrongs are not going to make it right, okay? And you also have to realize Benjamin Netanyahu and Prime Minister Netanyahu and others that are involved in this conflict, this war, you know, why are people lashing out? You know, why are those people lashing out? Why are they feeling like they have to attack to get your attention? You know, you have to remember the Gaza's been under siege since 2007. You know, they've been surrounded. They don't allow certain supplies in. The unemployment's like 60%. The people feel hopeless. They signed a peace agreement all the way back in 1993. Remember, we learned about that peace agreement, the Oslo Agreement. It was spoken about, I believe, in the, was it the character unit of the peaceful solution? We learned about the Oslo Agreement that was signed back in 1993, supposed to bring peace, right? A 7-year agreement, they said, to bring peace. And here we are. Let's see, how many years ago was that? 93? Is that 40 years or 30 years? 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And peace is breaking out now, right? Doesn't look like it. Looks like there's still a bunch of mayhem going on and destruction. I don't know that there's anything left of Gaza. I don't know how there could be anything left of Gaza at this point. I think the only reason they haven't dropped a nuclear weapon on that territory of Gaza is because it's right next door to them where it would affect them too, and they're not that stupid, see? So they have to just keep bombing and bombing and bombing, and it has the effect of dropping a nuke eventually. I mean, if you look at it, look at Syria. You know, look at Aleppo and other cities in Syria that are just leveled. Looks like they've been destroyed with a nuclear weapon. But it wasn't nukes. It was just bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb until they just leveled the whole city. And that's what they're doing to Gaza now. But, you know, when does it end? Because now other people are getting agitated because they're watching people getting murdered day after day after day, and they're sitting in there and they're going, we can't let this take place much longer. We're going to have to step in and try to save those people. You know, and this is because they too are not practicing the peaceful solution. Okay, they haven't learned yet that retaliation in any way, shape, or form, two wrongs is never going to make a right. You're never going to solve that problem. You're never going to solve the Middle East conflict, they call it, with more war, fighting, vengeance, retaliation. Just not going to work. Okay, what you're going to have to do is humble yourself. You're going to have to humble yourself. You know, I remember the author of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, Mr. Israel Hawkins, saying one time that if he was to take the peaceful solution into a room full of terrorists and they were willing to sit down and listen to what he had to say, by the time they left the room, they'd all be friends. Because there's just nothing that you can disagree with. I know I used to work with some pretty hardened people that were cartel members that used to be murderers, that were murderers, and I could actually sit down with them and talk to them reasonably, and they said that this is right. They said that this is right. They said that the peaceful solution is right. They're just not ready to accept it. Why? Because they feel like it's more profitable to be a hitman, or sell drugs, or, and I tell them, well, you could be a lot more profitable if you learn peace, and you could learn to teach peace, and you could have all the things that you want without hurting somebody to get them, and but they just said, well, I know it's right. I believe it. I believe what you're teaching is true. I'm just not quite ready for it yet. And I had many of them tell me that. And you know what? I accepted that. I was like, okay. Everybody has to make a choice. Everybody has to make a choice. And I'm sorry to say, in this world right now, there's people that own large munitions factories that are, that are making bombs and tanks and planes and all kinds of military equipment. They don't want peace. They're not looking for peace. What they're doing is they're hiring think tanks to come up with reasons to go bomb somebody. Okay? Reasons to sell weapons. Because, if everybody wanted to have peace, they wouldn't want to buy their planes and guns and tanks and everything else they're trying to make. So we have a problem here because some people think it's more profitable to be at war. Okay? War is a huge industry. I think Yisrael Hawkins also told us, Mr. Hawkins told us that he met with a man named Bawa Jain at the United Nations back in 2000 that told him, Mr. Hawkins, you got a big dream here of bringing peace with this peaceful solution. He says the nuclear industry alone is like a $900 billion a year industry. He says there's just so much money in this thing. People are not interested in peace. They're not going to hear it because their mind is clouded with dollar signs. Well, guess what? Eventually, they're going to hear it. Okay? And some are going to hear it the hard way. They're going to have to learn the hard way. Okay? That eventually all of this is leading to something. All of this is leading to something really, really horrible. Because you don't think they've been sitting on those bombs, and I just read, somebody sent me a report earlier today that they're getting ready to show the next, I think it's what they call that, the doomsday clock. They said that they're getting ready to unveil the doomsday clock again this year, and I think it's probably going to be a little closer to midnight. I think last time I saw it, it was only 90 seconds to midnight. Well, I think it's a lot closer today. Okay, I would think really, with the situation with Israel and Lebanon and Iran and other countries, with the Houthis and these different groups that America's targeting in Iraq, and this thing is a powder keg just waiting to go off. One bad move, and that's going to be it. Then you got the thing with Russia and Ukraine. You've got Ukraine sinking Russian ships. This thing could spark off really, really quick and turn into something really, really bad, okay, for millions of people, okay? But we got to keep putting out the warning. We got to keep telling them, look, y'all need to lay your weapons down for a minute and just listen to reason, okay? Somebody needs to listen, because if you don't stop, because I know the common people get it. I'm not blaming the common people. Get it, man. They don't want this. They don't want war. They're tired of war, man. People are tired of war. It's a losing proposition. People are tired of giving up all their tax money for destroying things, man. They're tired of it. People are tired of it. But you know what? They just don't have any choice. You know, they call it a democracy where there's people are supposed to be in charge, but the people are not in charge of anything. The people have no say so. Okay? But you know what? If every soldier right now revolted, laid their weapons down and told them, you know what? I'm going home to my family. I don't want no more of this stuff. We would have peace. If everybody just rebelled, right, and practiced the peaceful solution, rebelling and saying, you know what? I'm choosing peace. I don't want this anymore, man. You know, I don't got anything against those people. You know, and they all just put their weapons down. This would all be done, I think. But then there might be some madman, you know, sitting in a bunker somewhere with his finger on saying, I don't want to end this. I'm going to end it with this. And start shooting off some nukes, right? It's just a losing proposition. War is a sign of failure. Remember what we learned in the peaceful solution in the self-control unit? War is a sign of failure. It's a failure to communicate, failure to practice the peaceful solution and resolve your conflicts peacefully. Can you go back to the slides that I skipped? Because I want to show us a couple ways that we can, a couple tips we can use for controlling our anger appropriately. Yeah, right here. Let's look at this one right here. If you recall the RESPOND acronym, remember that we need to remain calm, evaluate the situation, stay objective, practice being polite. And then the next step, it says, overcome the desire to retaliate. Overcome the desire to retaliate. The desire, the urge, you know, the urge in every one of us, like we saw in that man. What was his name in this boy here? His name was Rick. Remember Rick? He had a desire to get even with that guy that stepped on his shoes. We got to overcome that. We got to overcome those thoughts. We got to push those thoughts out of the way like he did right here. It was really simple. Do you see how quick he did it? He did it really quick. He just said, you know what? It's crowded. He probably didn't realize he stepped on my shoes. And that was the end of it. It was his thoughts. He changed his thoughts. And guess what? He overcame that desire. He pushed that desire out. And he overcame it, and he practiced the peaceful solution, and he avoided a bad situation. You don't think the world leaders could do that if they wanted to? Of course they could. You know, and a lot of these leaders that are instigating things are religious leaders. They're religious leaders like ayatollahs, and you know, and I'm not picking on any of them, but they're supposed to be teaching people the right way, you know, like 2 wrongs don't make a right, you know, be peaceful, be a peacemaker, you know, or whatever, right? That's what they should be doing. Instead, you know, here we are in the peaceful solution. We're the voice of reason out here in this wilderness of people here, man. Everybody's just doing whatever they want to do. And we're just telling them, look, just overcome that desire to get even. Just overcome it. Practice pushing those things away. Go to the next slide. I'll give you another tip. Some appropriate ways to deal with anger is speak in a respectful tone of voice and use respectful words. Remember, we learned about using I language to communicate our feelings and instead of saying, you make me so mad, and not taking responsibility for your own feelings, because nobody makes us angry. We choose to be. We can say things like, you know, I feel very upset, or I feel angry about what you just said or did. And take responsibility for your own feelings. Quit blaming everyone else for your feelings. You're choosing those feelings. We can also behave in a peaceful way. Like Rick did, you know, where he said it's crowded. He probably didn't even see. All he did was he thought peaceful thoughts. It says use your positive character traits, you know, like compassion, humility. That's a big one right there. Humility. Be humble. You know, you don't have to win the argument. Just be humble. Be ready to apologize even if you're not wrong. Okay? Just to diffuse the situation so it doesn't escalate. If possible, walk away and take a time out to cool down. And talk to a parent, guardian, or counselor about your plan to control your anger. You know, these are all on page 75 of the self-control unit. You know, go back and go over those things again. And it also says, strive to be humble, apologetic, and willing to seek a compromise. In other words, find the peaceful solution. And you can do it. The world leaders can do it if they choose to do it. Stop being afraid of how you're going to look if you humble yourself, world leaders. Stop being afraid. Stop being afraid. Just humble yourself and teach your people to humble themselves. And let's turn this thing around. We can do it if we want to, if we choose to. Okay, so anyway, my time is up. So the next class is going to be on December 31st, 2023, right? December 31st, 2023, Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we hope you'll all join us. It's been a real pleasure being able to teach you tonight. And we'll see you next time.